Hi, I'm Mari Frank, and I'm here with my good friend Leonard Szymczak, who is also my co-author in our book, Fighting for Love, Turn Conflict into Intimacy. And with Valentine's Day almost upon us, we want to have time to talk about being a good Valentine to yourself. That's first. And then we'll do another one where we're going to talk about being a good Valentine to a partner and enjoying a relationship. So, Leonard, why is it so important to be a good Valentine to yourself?
Well, it's important that we start off with this way because, as you mentioned, often we look at being a Valentine for somebody else. Now, I'm not in a relationship currently, so Valentine's Day, for those of us who are single, can create some anxiety. And I do know that some of the clients I've had and other friends that I associate with, for Valentine's Day, they can't wait until Valentine's Day is over, so that they don't have to continually be bombarded with all these hearts that says there's something wrong, that I'm not in a relationship.
And and me with all my divorcing clients, it's a dreaded day. It may be a really sad day. They're going through a divorce and they don't have that time to be with their special person. And so you're right. It can be a very sad day for a lot of people, or just like an annoying day for people who say they never want to even be in a relationship again after that divorce.
Or they could even be in a relationship, but the passion has been lost, and so they look at Valentine's, and it's a reminder of what they don't have in their relationship.
Right. So if you're not in a relationship, or you've just gotten out of a relationship, or you're even pining for a relationship, what should you be doing on, not should, but what can you do on Valentine's Day to make it something really special?
Well, Mari, I think that there's a lot of research that shows that relationships really are important to our emotional and mental health. And that if we're not in relationships, not just necessarily a romantic relationship, but we do need relationships to help ourselves, to really feel connected and feel like we're being heard, we're being listened to, and that social connection, since we're social creatures, is very important. And
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit different for men and women because men tend to isolate rather than women do. So it's very crucial for us men that, especially in Valentine's Day, is to ensure that we are reaching out and that we connect with other friends. There could be men or women, but we're connecting so that we feel that we have this social relationships, people who are we feel are important to us and that we're important to them. Really crucial.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was saying to Lloyd the other night, I said, what if we weren't in a relationship? What if I died, or what if, I just left or something like that? I said, what would you do? And he said, I'd probably just hibernate. So you're absolutely right, and you know him, so he's probably would do something like that. So you're right. It's so important that if we're not in an intimate relationship, with a love relationship, we really do need to connect with other people. I don't know about you, but I don't think that Facebook or Instagram or chat, whatever it is,
Snapchat.
Snapchat, thank you. I don't think that is the same thing as really having, a real genuine relationship, because that people can be whoever they want to be on the internet. It isn't always a real connection, right?
That's true. And again, if I'm looking from a male perspective, uh, it's a lot more difficult for us to pick up the phone and say to a friend, "Hi, Steve. I was just thinking of just talking and connecting." Guys tend not to reach out by phone or to just get together just to hang out. They might say, "Hey, well, you want to get together for a beer? You want to go watch the ball game?" Or something to that effect, as opposed to, "Hey, would you like to get together so we can hang out and just start connecting and just share where we're at?" I mean, that's the benefit of I belong to a men's group, and so we meet every Tuesday evening in which we are able to kind of share what's going on with us, if we have health issues or relationship, or as our successes, that we're able to have a forum that we can just share and be a witness for other men.
That's so great. And I don't think enough men are doing this. I think, we're, for like the radio show on the University of California, maybe they get together because they're in dorms or they're, in apartments. But then when they go off and they leave, they really don't connect as much as women do. I think the good thing is we're seeing a lot of meetups now where people can say, gee, I like to golf. I'm going to join a meetup. Or I like to draw or photography. So that is a good way to have connections.
Mm-hmm.
And even I saw that with Valentine's Day coming up, there's even some singles meetups that people can get together and just have fun. Just go bowling or something and do something where they're connecting rather than sitting on their smartphone and thinking that they're connecting in some social networks that really doesn't do it.
That's so true. And then, I don't know about you, Mari. I mean, women are more skilled at connecting in relationships. So women kind of naturally, I mean, I think of the realm of play. Little girls are playing with dolls. They're interacting with other girls about relating and communicating.
Right.
Boys, we're playing ball. We're playing competitive games.
Right.
So competing against one another. So even playing as little boys and little girls, we have a different way of relating. And so again, I think part of this is we're not into competing, but into relating kind of soul to soul, spirit to spirit, which is something I think a real challenge for many of our men.
Yes. And I should plug your new book that's almost done, because you're talking about the new man, and the new man has to change. You and I have talked many times about the Me Too generation and what's going on and how women are changing and men have to change as well. And I think it's a challenging time for men to know what they can do and what they can't. And, Lloyd was even saying to me, I said, so what do you think about the Me Too? He goes, I think it's a real scary time for men, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and so let's think of it this way. The Me Too, obviously women who have been harassed, sexually abused, financially or whatever disadvantage, that they're coming forward to have their voice. So doing a number of things. They're really strengthening their voice. They're challenging social norms, and they're saying, we need to change. Now, men, traditionally, we've kind of given up some of our power to open the doors for more equality of women in the workforce, at least in the Western world. But what we haven't really done a lot of changing emotionally. So our emotional changes haven't really occurred that need to occur, and that means that we are really getting more connected with our emotional world, because men typically still don't really or feel uncomfortable with emotions except for anger. So if you watch the Super Bowl, well, men's anger come out and they can pummel one another for victory.
Right. What's interesting, as I've been doing all this research on the brain, is that men have these same emotions. The sadness. Yes, they expose themselves with anger more than they do the pain and the sadness and the hurt. And I think that's really interesting that they're starting to be able to express that. How is it when men do that, when they start to express their other emotions? Are they feeling guilty about it? What is the feeling when they're expressing more than just the anger?
Well, I think one of the hardest things for men to do is to be vulnerable. And
yes.
So be vulnerable with sadness, with grief. Yet we have a lot of grief. So I was at the men's group last night, and we were just talking about sometimes how we feel disconnected. And there's a lot of grief about not being connected to other men or not being connected to our fathers. I think there's a lot of grief that men have, that growing up, that if we haven't felt connected with our fathers, there's a lot of grief, and we haven't shared that grief. And so there's this huge underbelly of emotion that once it starts to come out, it comes out in a huge way. And the other thing, I guess a question for you, Mari, is that sometimes women are uncomfortable with men expressing their vulnerability, because I've heard women say that I just want my man to be the tough man. I don't really want to have a kind of a wimpy man. So I think it's a challenge for women. I mean, you're more open, you're you're more emotionally intelligent. And so, but some women I feel awkward with men really being more vulnerable.
I think they're in the old traditional ways. I think the new woman, it feels differently about that. I
Hmm.
know for me, in my first marriage, I had a husband that didn't express anything but anger.
Mm.
Um, and now, I mean, when I met Lloyd, I mean, he'd cry with me at movies. That was like a prerequisite for my relationship. I wanted somebody who would be able to express himself and be vulnerable. And to me, that's very masculine. So I feel the opposite. When he does, and he still has trouble, articulating those emotions. But I do really appreciate, and I appreciate that in you, Leonard. And whenever I tell Lloyd, I said, "Oh, Leonard is so wonderful. He can express that." He goes, "Well, he's a therapist. He has to be like that." But I mean, that's true. But you're a good role model for men to express these feelings, and men are being more involved in child rearing and loving their kids up and kissing them and hugging them like you do with your grandson. And in the olden days, I don't think that was as acceptable. So we're evolving. So let's get back to really what is it that's so important about loving ourselves. Let's talk a little bit about that because that's such a critical thing. And what does it really mean, Leonard?
Well, let's kind of. I know you've done a lot of research on emotional intelligence, and so let's kind of. When I think about self-love, I think about emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is, as we know, is just being aware of my emotional states, and that I have the ability to recognize them, express my emotions, and be open to feedback from others. And so, really, self-care means that I'm acceptance. There's a real element of acceptance of whatever's going on with me. When I'm having an emotion, there's no right, there's no wrong. I'm just accepting it, so then I can move through the emotion. If I'm feeling angry or sadness, I can express it and then move through it, so it doesn't get all bottled up and get so intense. That's part of self-care, is really being emotionally aware of myself, and also being socially aware. So it's also being aware with empathy of other people's emotions, so I can relate to them in a much different way. I mean, this is also very crucial about self-care, wouldn't you say, Mari?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And so, a lot of people say, and I had a client this morning that was very, very angry, and we were talking about something, and she said, "I'm just so angry." And I said, "Okay, that's important. That's legitimate for you to be angry. So what are you going to do with that anger?" "Well, I'm ready to act out and go and litigate now." And I said, "Well, what's another way that you can use that anger as a motivating force in you?" And I think this is the problem when people say, "Well, I'm angry and that's the way it is." Part of being emotionally intelligent is recognizing that anger, feeling that anger, and then stopping and pausing and saying, "I know I'm angry. Now, what am I going to do about it that's going to be really a strategic thing to do, that's going to be a way for me to express myself without embarrassing myself, without destroying a relationship?" So I think that's the key issue, is once you're self-aware, then you can make a choice about how you're either going to react and scream and yell, or how you're going to respond by being very mindful and expressing, "Gee, this really hurts me," or "I'm really angry about this." So that when you get into the social awareness, how you're going to be, how someone is going to respond to you.
And the additional thing to that is that we're also being socially aware of what I'm needing. So let's say if I'm feeling unloved,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling unloved, or I'm feeling lonely. What am I needing? I'm needing to feel more connected. I'm needing to feel more loved, more appreciation. And then I can actually begin to take steps, just like, whether if I'm angry, I can take steps, to be appreciated. I can say to someone, says, I'd like to know what you appreciate about me. I shared with you, I was in Florida with my brother, sister, and brother-in-law, and before we left, we sat down, and I said, I'd like to share what I appreciate about you. And we had a very touching time where we just stopped, and just shared what we really appreciate about one another. And it was a beautiful way to end our time. We had a vacation together, beautiful time for us to get together and just share our appreciation. And
And it's such a sweet way to say goodbye, when you're not going to see them for a while. It's going to, it's going to last with them forever, as
mhm.
opposed to, gee, that was really fun, hey, that was a good time. Instead of saying, gee, I really appreciate that. Gee, what a beautiful thing that you did, Leonard.
Well, thank you. And I think a lot of us, in our own ways, they're kind of covert, want to be. If we're feeling unappreciated, we might kind of, oh, I don't know, do something to get attention to ourselves or whatever. So it's just about being more open to say, just like you were saying, you asked Lloyd, what do you appreciate about me? Can you name 3 things that you really appreciate about me?
Right, and we did this back and forth of 3 things all the way to the gym, What do you appreciate? Okay, what do you appreciate? And it was kind of fun, and it left us in a better mood. But so let's talk about it. Just, I don't know how much time we have left, but let's talk a little bit about what you can do for yourself on Valentine's Day to you can even do some journal writing about what you appreciate about yourself, right, Leonard?
You can do that. So let's think if you're on your own and it's Valentine's Day, and you want to it's an opportunity to think, well, how can I express self-love on this day? I know Valentine's is it can be commercial, but then you can make a list. This would really maybe as simple as stopping for a cup of coffee, having your favorite latte. It could be as simple as taking a walk by the beach, or calling a friend, or going out to a movie, or having a meal with a friend. I mean, you can do a lot of different things, and part of it would be say, what will make me feel loved? And strangely, Mari, what makes me feel loved? This is,
Right.
I love to read, and so sometimes I feel guilty, especially if I have a lot of work to do. I kind of put that at the end. But if I say, I get to just sit down and just read a
Yeah.
wonderful book, I always feel loved when I'm reading an engrossing book that by an author who I really love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Or I was telling you, I was sick last week and I felt kind of bad about myself,
Hmm.
like, oh, because, you're down in the dumps. And I put on all these YouTubes, the TED Talks, and they were all motivating. So,
Ah,
yeah, that was something that really made me feel better, kind of got me healed. But, sometimes you can put on like comedies or watch a comedy or do something. You don't even have to be with anybody else, or go for a walk in nature. I have a friend that every time she's feeling down, she goes out by the beach and she walks by the ocean, and it just changes her mood. So yeah, doing something special for yourself and really appreciating yourself, putting together like maybe a board of like all the things that you appreciate about yourself. And the other thing is, like, let's say you were talking about reading, but let's say you have some other hobby. Let's say you love to play the flute, or you love to draw and you never have the time to do it. Do something like that. Do something that really makes it fun for you to have a good time on Valentine's Day.
the funny thing is, my son visited with me a couple of weeks ago, and I bought these acrylic paint sets that I've been meaning to do some painting. And so on the evening he was with me, and we were saying, what do we want to do? One night we had gone to the comedy club, and I says, well, I got these acrylic paints. He says, oh, great. And so he and I were at the table doing our own individual painting using
Yeah.
acrylic paints. And the funny thing is, before he left, I says, oh, don't you want to take your painting with you? He says, no, Dad, I thought you'd hang it up and on the wall.
Frame it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, I do have it hanging up in my kitchen, and it reminds me, because his painting was of a sun, and I says, well, I always look at the painting and says, here comes the sun.
Right, right. Yeah, it's like the little kids when they're like in kindergarten. You hang it up on the refrigerator and all that stuff. Oh, that is so cute. Well, you and I, when we've gotten together with other friends, remember when we did all those?
Clay, yes.
We took the clay and put our hands in the clay and made sculptures. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do that you need to. I think it's really important when you're down, and especially a lot of my clients going through a divorce, and I'm sure your clients when you're therapy, that they're not happy, that's why they're coming to you, is that we need to have them change their thinking, and that when they have a negative thought, replace it with a positive thought. That, thank God I'm healthy, or just so many things that they can be grateful for in their own lives, that changes the mood for them. And once they change that, then they can have a happy Valentine's Day, right?
I think you really put your finger on the pulse here, Mari, and that is gratitude. Really being grateful for what we do have. As you know, my brother-in-law passed away 3 weeks ago, and that really made me realize that, life is short, and to really be grateful for the simple things that we can see, we can talk, that we can be active, just for the very simple things of life. I really have a deeper appreciation of really all that we have living in our wonderful country, living in California. I mean, there's so much to be appreciative for.
Yes, there is. So I'm going to tell you happy Valentine's Day. And I appreciate, Leonard, how smart you are, how enlightened you are, how spiritual you are, and how much you really bring up all those things in me too, and help to enlighten me and get me excited, because you have so much to give to your clients and your family and your friends. So I just want to tell you I'm grateful for that, and happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Mari. And I know that words of appreciation are your language of love. And so I do appreciate, I've learned so much in our collaboration together on our book, and just collaborating. I learned so much. You've done a lot of reading on emotional intelligence, brain research, and we've been able to really collaborate and share our information from different perspectives. And your really investment. I know that you're such a compassionate, invested person in your clients and the people who you meet with. That I always appreciate your love, your compassion, your intelligence, the new woman, so to speak, just really stepping out into really making changes, and you're not afraid to make changes in your life and come forward.
And and that's the end. And so when Leonard and I did this for you and showed our appreciation of our deep friendship, he's my buddy, my brother. Do this with your friends. Do this with all your friends on Valentine's Day. Tell each one of them all the great things that you appreciate about them and why they're so important to you in your life, whether it's your loved one or your best friend or just acquaintances or a professor.
Or even your dog or your cat.
Oh, yeah, yes, for sure over that. So thank you, and happy Valentine's Day. And the next one we're going to do is about relationships, intimate relationships. So
happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.